Silicon Beach. We've got some workmen behind us who might be giving us a little bit of a percussive blast every now and then. And I'm here with Richard Huntington, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of London? Saatchi Saatchi.
Not the whole of London. I think that's Sadiq Khan. Saatchi London.
So, strategy is one of these things that people kind of can be a little bit overwhelmed by it because they don't quite know what it is. Is there a simple kind of definition as to what strategy is?
Yeah, I mean, and it's important that we demystify strategy because it sounds like something that's very hard and difficult. The truth is, strategy is just having a plan. And what you find is that most organisations, whether they're clients or agencies, for people to do something, they need a plan to work to. Strategy is just a plan, hopefully, that will deliver, and you have thought about how it will deliver your objectives. But it's just a plan.
So to start with that plan, you need to, I guess, have the information in the first place. And you can either have too little information or too much information, and both of these things are relatively disastrous. How do you know if you've got the right amount of information or the right kind of information?
I think the most important information, to be honest, and it's critical, and you can probably work with just this, but you need a problem to solve. Creativity in all its forms is simply a process of problem solving, and you get your best results, your best strategies and your best work out of a clearly defined problem. Most strategists and most creatives just need a problem to solve. Everything else is sort of helpful background information, and it can be useful and insightful or not, but as long as you know what you're trying to achieve, that's all you really need.
So when it comes to the idea generation part of the creative process, which is generally what people focus on, but if you haven't got the strategy and the brief right, then you're going in the wrong direction with the ideas. So how do you take your strategy and turn it into a brief, and what's the importance of a brief?
Yeah, okay. So you've got your strategy, your plan. I'm thinking, say, something like Direct Line, where we took it and repositioned it a couple of years ago with Harvey Keitel as Mr. Wolf from Pulp Fiction. The strategy there was we wanted to reposition them as high performance insurance. The brief is simply, and people get worked up about briefs, the brief is simply a way of communicating that to a creative team or designer or somebody's going to make something in a way that inspires them and directs them. It gives them a kind of place to play and the freedom to play within that space. And that's what's desperately important about a brief. And never think that you can get away with not, I think ultimately, and sounds anal, writing a brief, because it disciplines your thinking, and it sets creative thinking, whether that's yours or anybody else's, off in the right direction. Then they can be amazing, and you know that the solution will answer your problem.
Yeah. So, what's the importance of sort of inspiration as well, along with that? How do you inspire people to come up with? Does a brief have to be inspiring itself? And how do you inspire people to go down that direction? And here's the kind of idea we're looking for.
At its basic, a brief should be directional and clear and simple. Okay, and I think that there are prizes simply for saying I want you to talk about this, and I'm going to make it very simple and straightforward. The genius comes from making it also inspirational for people to work to. And my experience is simply that if you walk into a designer or a creative or copywriter, art director, and tell them something about a brand or a category that they'd never thought before, that's the moment of inspiration. I think that's my job. I used to work with a great guy called Steve Henry, founded How Henry Chilcott Lurie in the 80s, dead now, not him, the agency. And he always just say, all I want from strategists is to tell me something I don't know about a brand or the wider world. And that's really what I think my job is, a revelation.
So it's one of these things, people have a little bit of a misunderstanding that they think that creativity, it needs to all be wide open. Let's not give ourselves any restrictions here. It's got to, the best thing is to give people just total freedom to roam wherever they want.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, and that's a disaster. So tell me about about restrictions and the freedom of restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing with the brief is you're articulating a territory for somebody it's like a sand pit. You know, you go and do everything and anything you want to do within this space, and frankly, people talk about creativity coming from anywhere. I mean, working with creatives, I do know what it's like to put a brief in and then see work come back that I couldn't possibly have got to on my own. You know, I always think I'm a little bit like Gandalf. I can take people to the edge of the Shire but no further. You know, then creatives are on their own, and it's still a magical moment when you have a creative review, and they unveil something you couldn't have got to yourself. So it's about creating a territory for them to work in that gives them freedom, but, you know, the edges, so they don't go to places that are unhelpful for you, unhelpful for the brand, or dead ends. It's where the competitors play, or it's deeply unattractive for the consumer. And then you're, I mean, it's called a limiting constraint. No, it's not. It's called a liberating constraint, isn't it? Adam Morgan talks about this a lot at the moment. But that's the essence of creativity, is to have a problem. The essence of creative thinking is to have a problem, a place to play, and then to go bonkers mental crazy.
So then once you've got all your ideas, you need to judge them.
Yeah.
How do you judge ideas to know which ideas are the best ones to go with? How much of it is gut and how much of it is rational thinking?
Well, there's an old way of approaching this, which is to say, is it on brief and do I think it's good? And of course, the stuff that's on brief and you think's good, you make immediately. It's more interesting when the stuff's off brief, but it's good. And you really have to look at yourself, particularly as a strategist, and go, maybe this is a better way of solving that problem than the sandpit I created. And it's a moment, I think, of soul-searching as a strategist, and I would hope as clients as well. I mean, too many clients get hidebound by the brief and then refuse to countenance anything else. The other place is would I like it and no, I like it, I hate it, and it's on brief, which is also challenging for strategists and for clients in particular, because you have to accept that maybe you don't own the monopoly on what's good in the world.
So for people working in industries that aren't considered to be creative industries, and they're being asked to come up with ideas, what would be your top tips for them to get the sort of the preparation sorted out correctly so that they can then come up with the best kinds of solutions?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, return to the theme of, you need to diagnose the problem that you want to solve, be really clear about it. It should be crunchy and commercial, if it's a commercial activity, and then you should work out the strategy that's best, the plan that's best going to deliver against that problem or objective. There's a wonderful example from way back where M&C Saatchi were asked to recruit quality recruits to the Metropolitan Police, and they set the problem as make 999 out of 1,000 people realise they could never be a police officer. It's a well-crafted problem that unlocks your creativity, and if you can do that, I think you're half the way to being able to access the creative and imaginative part of the brain that you're going to need for the next step. And that, I'm afraid, it's just creativity is a muscle that exists in all of us, and some people spend every single waking hour using it and some people don't, and it's just a matter of exercising it and knowing how to discipline your mind to go, I'm going to stop being analytical and logical, and I'm going to try and go to some weird and wonderful places and not judge myself.
Fantastic. Richard, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, are we rolling?